This is Janet Fitch, and it is noon on Wednesday, so that means it is Writing Wednesday when I answer your writing questions, um, tech questions, craft questions, psychological questions, uh, existential questions, all of the questions that writers are heir to or that we err on. Um, So uh, if you tune in, please feel free to ask me questions in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that. Hi, Linda. And if you have questions for me between Writing Wednesdays, definitely contact me through my website, janetfitchwrites.com, and I can design a Writing Wednesday around your question. So I have questions today. A number of questions that were sent to me through the interwebs, and I thought I would begin with the first one, which is what makes an event worth writing about? Now, this is primarily for fiction writers, Writing Wednesday, although, hi, Sarah. Hi, Brenda. It is primarily for fiction writers. So, in terms of fiction writing, what makes an event worth writing about? Um, the way story works in fiction writing, um, you put pressure on characters, or events put pressure on characters. And it's not, a character is not just some cardboard cutout named Johnny. Uh, Character is the components of character, who that person is, not just what their name is and they walk around and do things, but who the character is. Um, And the bluntest way to put it is, if you hi, Wendy. Hi, Laura. If you have, a character who is afraid of spiders, an event worth writing about would be, that person going on a spider hunting expedition. Like, why would they do that? Well, there's your story. Why would they do that? And then what happens to them when they do it? Um an event is worth writing about in fiction when there's a change, the element of change. An event that doesn't change anything is not worth writing about. It causes a change in the character and the way the character views the world, in what they're trying to do in the world. Hi, Amy. Um, and it has it has a quality of moving a story forward, because once whatever it was happened, the character can't go back to the way that it was before. So that's another way of describing what is a scene. So an event is a scene, or a sequence, which means a series of scenes that are related. Um, but they all have a movement. Um, so if you see, I want to have a piano fall to the sidewalk and kill somebody in your, say that you've decided that you want to write that scene, that's an event. Is it worth writing about? Well, it's all then dependent upon who sees it and how they're affected by it. So if you are a pianist and you have tried to maybe apply for something, and there's somebody who doesn't want you to have that position for some reason, or wants you to clear the field for them. If somebody pushes a piano out of a window and it lands so this character can see it, they're going to take a lesson, because the message is, next time it's going to be you out the window. Um, so an event is worth writing about if you can see how it's going to progress what's happening to your character, what message it's going to send, or what are they going to get out of it, or what is it putting pressure on. say I'm a very selfish person and require everything to be the way I like it. And I go to college, maybe I only child, with doting parents who put up with my stuff. And then I get a roommate, somebody who's never had to share before. Well, there's an event worth writing about because it's going to put pressure on what's wrong with this character and hi, chill, and force them to change. Um, so that's what makes an event worth writing about. That was my first question. I have questions today from the interwebs. Um, the next question that I received, which is an excellent, excellent question, is about character. How do I write a player character with real depth? Like the psychology behind things like sleeping around and self-destructive behavior, and how to show that in a way that feels authentic and respectful. Well, that's interesting. I wouldn't think respectful is necessary. You know, uh, it depends. If you want a sympathetic character who's a player, you're going to be showing the behavior that you're not necessarily thrilled with, the player aspect. Um, but then you're going to show things about that character which are worthwhile and worthy of our sympathy if you want to be respectful as well as honest about this person. Um, so you're going to see the psychology behind things like sleeping around and self-destructive behavior. Um, this is a job for uh, the three-dimensional character study, which we've talked about. Lagos Egri, Lajosegri, wrote a book called The Art of Dramatic Writing for playwrights. And most of the advice in the book is not for fiction writers. Um, it is a it offers advice that will screw you up as a fiction writer because it's not intended for us. It does things like start with theme, and fiction writers don't start with theme, we end with theme because we don't know what theme we're working towards. And if we try to work towards a theme, we tend to start playing with paper dolls. People represent characters representing ideas rather than characters representing people. So, but the best thing in the book that everybody should buy the book or take it out of the library and copy the three-dimensional character study. So the three-dimensional character study is the physical, psychological, and sociological. And the questions that you ask yourself about their physicality. Do they have any birthmarks? Do they have any physical defects? Did they have any illnesses as a child or currently? Scars? Are they, do they, their physical posture? Are they upright? Are they fluid? Are they stiff? Are they hunched? Are they kind of defeated? What is their gait when they walk? Are they defeated? Do they seem aggressive? Are they quick, or are they slow? Is their speech thoughtful or is it staccato? Are they impatient? That's psychological more than physical. So you're looking at them physically and how they present themselves. Are they messy? Are they dirty? Are they clean? Do they work out? What is their relationship to their body? What is people's impression of them? And then you go into the psychological, which is, are they aggressive? Are they passive? Are they anxious? What is their worst fear? What is their What is their hope for the future? What is their um, who is their hero? What traits do they like least in a person? Are they impatient? Are they patient? Are they um, do they spend all their time worrying? Uh, are they militant? Do they believe they're absolutely right and force that down everybody's throat? Um, are they a follower? Are they a leader? Are they neither? So explore the three-dimensional, three, and then the third dimension is sociological, family of origin, current, are they single? Are they married? What is their relationship to their sexuality? I'd say I don't have it right on hand, or I would just read it off. Where that goes, their sexuality is very important. Um, what is their relationship to other people? What magazines do they read? What books do they read? What music do they like? Sarah says, planning to finally start Chimes of a Lost Cathedral tonight. This is the second volume of my Russian book. Excited. Yeah, very cool. Thank you, Sarah. Um, so you start asking yourself questions about people. So in this case, it's how do I write a player character with real depth, the psychology behind things like sleeping around and self-destructive behavior, and how to show that in a way that feels authentic and respectful. So this is going to be a protagonist, probably, someone that the author actually likes, despite or because of their proclivities to being a player. So ask yourself, take that three-dimensional character study and ask yourself, um, what other characteristics does this person have? What would make someone a player? What kind of physicality, maybe, first of all, that might get them to be this kind of a person? Are they someone, is it a man or a woman? Um, let's just, I'm going to guess it's a man, um, but it could easily be a woman. And they would have, you know, I mean, the character that I'm writing, whether she's a player, I don't know. She's a middle-aged woman, but she's very sex positive. And, she had body issues as a younger person, and uh, in her family, her mother was very attractive and very, very disapproving of her being heavy. So when she grew up, she started noticing that not everybody thought she was disgusting, that some people thought she was very attractive. Um, Her mother was more worried about it than the men that she encountered. And she also has attachment issues. So a player, what's a player? A player is somebody who has attachment issues. They want to win people over, um, but they don't want that person to have a piece of them. They're in a constant state of turning people from interesting objects to how to get rid of them, into problems. How do you get rid of those people? Once you've seduced them, getting rid of them is a harder part. And what is it like to see love and desire and all that in somebody else's face and not feel it, not feel what you're doing to them? A player is a user. Uh, and then what makes somebody like that? They both need the constant approval that you get when people find you desirable. Um, you get that constant approval, but then you don't know what to do with it once you're in a relationship. You cannot stay in a relationship with it. It starts to become very oppressive. So you're somebody who needs approval, but doesn't want to be really in a relationship with a human being. So It's a push-pull, kind of thing. So what kind of a person is like that? I would say overbearing parent, always keeping them at length. But and a player seems to be, is not going to be the best, the strongest person on the team or the most, the most successful um, person in sports or in, the playground or whatever, but they notice that they do have this quality that is very seductive to other people, and that becomes their thing, So whatever else they're doing in life, the player part is very important. And the way you make somebody like that sympathetic um, is the loneliness that they walk around with, that they have to keep seducing. They have to keep being approved of by, can I get this girl or can I get this guy? Um, we usually think of player in general as a guy, but I could see it as a woman too. Somebody maybe who is finally free to pursue her sexual interests. Um, but doesn't really trust other people that much. So that's where the player part comes in. They don't trust people that much. So even if they win this guy or that guy or that guy or, girl, whatever they're into, um, they can't let them all the way in because then they're going to be controlled rather than controlling the situation. They have to control the situation. So then they start playing, which is keeping that person on the string while going out and finding other people. It's not a pretty, from the inside, it's not a very pretty picture. Um, And often the player obviously is a villain, is an antagonist rather than a protagonist. So if you have somebody like that as a protagonist, you would be showing the vulnerability. You would be showing where this comes from. What is his relationship to his mother? What is his relationship to his father? What is his relationship to his brothers? What is relationship to maybe physical body? Um, Like, what is it serving? And then if that person is going to be a sympathetic character, you have your work cut out for you. Um, how are we doing? Uh, thank you. Hi, Christina. Um, here's another question we have today. Anybody want to talk more about the player? Such an interesting character. I think players generally are liars, people who aren't very happy with themselves, and it's a lot about front and where does that come from. um, so it makes a very interesting character with a lot of possibilities. Okay, well, next question. Okay, we have, okay, I don't know if I'll choose character voice or narrator voice. This is for, point of view in the novel or short story. New writer here. I want to write in a voice where the words flow more easily as I write the first draft, but I also want to comfortably describe the setting, thoughts of the character, and their body sensations. I also want to write in a voice that allows me to capture the character's personality. Writing with character voice seems to let my words flow. I would say first person is what you mean. Um, Seems to let my words flow as I write and allows me to capture the character's personality. But personally, writing this way restricts me to only what the character sees and feels. Narrator voice, third person, uh, is more freeing for me as it lets me describe more about the environment and character. However, writing in the narrator voice, third person, doesn't let me capture a character's personality as well, especially when I want it to be written in a conversational style. I figure it may be because of point of view I choose, which is third person point of view. Character voice might work for me if written in first person, but I have no plans on changing from for third person to first person. I was thinking maybe I can combine both character voice and narrator voice, but is that possible? Any tips on how to do it right? Well, there's a good question. So the this person is basically noticing the um, the special abilities, the superpowers of first and third. First person point of view, what he's calling character point of view. First person, everything comes through the character. And the limitation is that there's much the character can't see. It's difficult to pull the camera all the way back and get a master shot. Um, the more mentally active the character is, to that they are willing to step back from what's happening and have a bigger thought will help make that first person a little bit more supple. Third person allows you such a lot more flexibility, and you can pull back and you can describe the character, which they never describe themselves. That's probably the biggest limitation of first. Um, but and you can have a what they call a close third, where you're thinking the character's thoughts. You're inside the character. Um, you're getting their thoughts, but you can move around as well. The difference often is how first person can reflect the voice of the character, the the unique sound of their voice, the unique texture of their thoughts, which is about language and how they put language together. And if a character puts language together in a very interesting way, then first is nice. If the character is not terribly expressive or thoughtful, you're much better off in third person, what you're calling the narrator voice, because the narrator can supply insight that you're not going to get out of the character. So think about how limited your character is. And if your character, you like the first person, but your character just doesn't think in a very interesting way, then think about third. People often write one draft in one point of view and then change it in another draft, and then often change it back in the next draft. It's very fluid, and you can experiment with it. Try it in with a chapter. Try writing it both ways and see what you think. I certainly do that every book. I try a different point of view: present tense, past tense, first person, third person. Um, I have in this book, I have a very voicey character. I like the way she phrases things. And when on the parts that I actually tried in third person, um, it went flat for me, because her voice, her way of expressing herself, her way of seeing the world and having a thought about it, her cadences, her sense of humor, was completely, not completely lost, but quite missing when I went into third person. So I ended up writing it back into first person. So we do this all the time. It's just a tool in your toolkit. Um, let's see. Anything about I know we've talked about point of view quite a bit, and first and third. It's one of the major decisions that you make as a writer, uh, is deciding that person. So I'm not surprised that somebody who is a new writer can't figure out which to use. You have to try it. Try one, try the other. Don't try to figure it out. Try it and then see which you like better. It's like a dress. You need to try it on. You can't just look at it on the hanger and think, which should I do? You know, you can do either one of them, so you might as well try them out, see if you like them. Laura says, can you talk about past versus present tense? Um, I, generally speaking, past tense helps the writer shape a story, because in doing it in past tense, the character, the narrator, whoever, is narrating something that has already happened. So we trust that narrator to pick and choose the events and scenes that are going to speak to what eventually happens. So it raises the reader's trust, and it gives you a way of deciding what goes in and what stays out. What it helps you shape your story. Whereas present tense is happening now. It's happening now, and you don't know what's going to end up being part of the story, right? Like, it's like your story. You go out today and this is happening, this is happening. That guy almost sideswiped you, and this is happening, and you don't know really which elements are going to continue, are going to help, are going to shape your day, are going to shape your week, or shape your life. You don't know. So there's a bit of anxiety on the part of the reader when they're reading present tense, because they don't really know if this has been selected because it's part of the story or it's just something that happened. So to me, that's a big difference in past versus present. Um, I've written both ways. Usually I go for past, because present locks you in a way that is very difficult. It's very difficult when you're locked into the first person present tense. Your reader isn't quite sure whether anything is going to come of what we're seeing. So you have to take special care that there is a shape to the narrative, and that what you're telling people has some bearing on what is to come. It's a little harder to control the narrative in the present tense, and foreshadow anything, because you're telling it as it's happening. And you can't say what I didn't know was not in present tense. Um, so where you start is very important, and ways of telling. You have to work in ways of telling things that if it was in the past tense, somebody from the past looking at the larger story and then telling you how we're going to go through that story. Um, in first person, you have to find ways to work things in that you don't have to be quite as tricky about when you're doing past tense. Anybody else? All righty. Well, we have here's a plot question we have. Can a book with a bad plot but great writing still be successful? Well, so much of this is subjective. You know, what is a bad plot? We all know what great writing is. So it has rhythm, it has music, it's observant. Um, so a bad plot, but great writing still be successful. And then successful also is up for grabs. Does it, can something with a bad plot give the reader, um, make the reader feel like they've used their, um, use their time in a satisfactory way to live in your world? What is a bad plot? Now, to me, a bad plot is a plot you can see coming, from, you know, the first page, you practically can see the whole thing. That's to me, that's a bad plot, you know. But there's all kinds of ways to go bad. There's all kinds of ways to go bad, you know, that the reader can see everything coming, that there's no drive forward, it just kind of meanders. All the all the tools that we've been talking about all these months of, um, profluence, which means the drive to read on, that something's gonna happen and we wanna know, and we're in. Um, when profluence is missing, um, I would say that's a bad plot, that we just don't care. We don't care. Nothing seems to be happening. People are just kind of wandering around, going to parties or hanging out, drinking beer, um, and nothing internal is happening. No pressure on the characters. That exactly what you think is going to happen is what happens. Um, can that book be successful? I hate to say, if you look at what people read, that they're successful every day. There's a crappy book that is successful. I mean, I won't name names, but I think at least half the books out there are crappy books, and that a bad plot. Usually, it's bad plot and bad writing. Uh, Usually, somebody who writes really well um, just has to learn how to write a scene. How to put pressure on a character and write a scene in which something happens. Um, I think, great writing uh, makes something very interesting. Um, but if it's something that the reader is going to say, This is a bad plot," um, the author has not taken the same care with what happens, the scenes, the dramatics of writing that they have taken with the craft of the sentence. And so they need to learn a little bit more about the dramatics, how to make something happen in a book. It's the two sides of things. So, can a book with a bad plot but great writing be successful? Unfortunately, it can, but you don't even need to have great writing. I mean, people read bad books. Everybody has their thing, but it'll never be successful as a novel. Okay, here's another one, which is the absolute reverse of that question. Can a book be well written with a strong plot and character development, even if the author has poor writing skills? Um, can a book be well written if the author has poor writing skills? No. No. It will never be well written if the writer has poor writing skills. Um, but if it has a strong plot and character development, people can enjoy that if they don't care about the writing. For me, the bad writing ruins the book because there's cliche. People say, lines that anybody could say, all of the downfall. It's rhythmically uninteresting. The sentences are all the same. It kind of puts you to sleep. And a strong plot goes a little ways in keeping you awake, and good character development is excellent. But if the writer has poor writing skills, that's going to hurt the book. Um, you want to write the sentence as well as the story. I mean, that was the advice that just completely launched me as a writer, was sending in good stories. I thought good character development, good plot, and having them rejected, and then having a wonderful editor write back with a rejection, saying, good enough story, but what's unique about your writing, your sentences? And I think this is very common. I had never thought about my sentences. I mean, unless you're taking an MFA program or, you majored in creative writing or something, which very few of us do, by the numbers, that we tend to focus on plot and character. Um, and I mean, nobody ever said you've got to learn to write a really good sentence, an interesting sentence, musically interesting, phrasing and the, an occasional dependent clause, long and short, interesting word choice. Um, so I don't think you get far with bad writing either. Maybe a little further, unfortunately, because people are not as tuned to that, except for the literary reader. In genre fiction, you can get away with a lot of that. In literary fiction, not so much, because people are reading it for the writing. But in a genre fiction, in romance or in horror or um, mystery, sometimes you just get a real workmanlike writing with really good characters, a really good description, really good plot that moves. And I think a book like that, will go a long way. Um, what else can I say? Here's another one. What are some authors whose short stories are better known and loved than their novels? That is a really good question because some of us are actually better at short stories than they are at novels and vice versa. You can have really, really excellent writers who write the most incredible stories, but their novels are just they don't move the way a novel should move. They don't expand the way a novel see, a novel has a lot of room and it expands, but you can't just throw everything into it. It's not a dumpster. And you still have to have the pressure of, um the scenes, like what puts pressure on those characters. And in fact, a short story doesn't have to have those same demands because you're not going to bring your reader through 400, 500 pages and keep their interest. So you can be more extreme with a short story because you don't have to play it out more than 25 pages. You can get a real weird situation and it'll be good in a short story. It'll hold up. Whereas you might not be able to read a whole novel of it. It might be like the difference between having a chocolate truffle or eating like a box of chocolate truffles. It's just too much. Um, Brenda says, I enjoy Andrea Barrett's short stories more than her novels, although I like everything she does. And Amy says, George Saunders and Flannery O'Connor, better known for their masterful short stories. I would say, although Dennis Johnson is a great favorite of mine, and his big novel of the Northern California coast called Already Dead is definitely one of my favorite novels. But I think he's most known for his short story collection, Jesus' Son. I think he made his name with that. Um, Poe never wrote a novel. I think that Tennessee Williams wrote wonderful short stories, but he only wrote one novel, which is The Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone. Um, so I think I would say, well, he's known for his plays, but the short stories definitely. Flannery O'Connor is a classic. Um, her short stories is what she's known for. Everything that rises must converge, stuff like that. Carver, um, Raymond Carver, his very minimalist short stories are are tremendously moving, whereas his novel, not so much. I mean, it's a good novel, but definitely he's known for the short story. Sarah says Grace Paley, for sure. Train Dreams was a lovely Johnson novella. And I think novella is a form unto itself, and I like the novella. I think one of the best kinds of collections you see are it's a something that's a novella, like stories and a novella. So, one story that's maybe 80 pages, 60 pages. Um, Chekhov made long stories. He was a playwright, but I don't know if he's known more for his plays or for his short stories. Fitzgerald, those short stories are masterful. Um, Faulkner could go either way because the short stories are amazing, but he's a novelist, I would say. Um, Laura says, I like Tobias Wolff's short stories better than his books. Now, that's interesting. I think Joyce Carol Oates. I mean, I've read a lot of Joyce Carol Oates, and she is such a short story writer. Her novels, they struggle to keep your attention. I mean, they're pretty good. They're good. I mean, they're pretty good. They're amazing. She's an amazing writer, but her um, her short stories really ring the big bell, much more than the novels. Um, she tends to bog down. Like everything is beautiful, but you could stop anywhere because it's just the glorious language that tends to rise to the top, not like what the hell's going to happen to these people. Sarah points out Borges, who didn't write any novels. He's a short story writer. That that short, it is a different head. Um, Sometimes a person has very complex ideas that cannot be sustained over time. Um, that you want to read it and it just blows you away, but it doesn't continue to blow you away chapter after chapter after chapter. It's just like it's either gets too convoluted, it's too complex, the person's sensibility is too complex, and it gets clotted when it's when it comes chapter after chapter after chapter. Um, so yeah, I think some people are native short story writers, and that people are funny about short stories. The readers are funny about short stories. Um, you have to settle into a work of short story, and then you read and then it's over. So there's a lot of sinking in and waking up, um, instead of a continuous dream, which is what the novel is. Just when you get used to what they're doing, it's over. So in a way, you can play much more imaginatively in a short